Welcome to another episode of Between Sundays, where the whole purpose of all this is we just want to have conversation. We want to encourage you to have conversation wherever you are with the people around you, friends, family, spiritual leaders. We just want to encourage conversation. I've got with me here today my co-host, Maxine Higgins.
Hey, everyone.
And we're going to dive into a conversation that I'm excited to have, as always. Today, we are going to talk about crystals and karma. We're going to talk about different religions. We're going to talk about different viewpoints and how people tend to find God or think they found God. We're going to try to talk about as much of it as we can here today. So, crystals and karma. Let's talk about it.
Living between Sundays.
Okay, so crystals, karma, energies, vibration, all this stuff that people talk about. We're gonna get into it, but I have to first ask, Max, how you like my shirt?
Shirt is vibrating. It's doing all the things on camera.
There's a story behind it. My family and I, we've done it twice now. It's usually around Christmas-ish time. We'll draw names out of a hat, and you get like a $50 limit. And you have to go to like a thrift store or something and just buy the ugliest outfit you can. And you purchase that for the person you drew out of the hat, and they have to wear it. We all go out to dinner, and whoever chickens out, like if you see the outfit or when you finally put it on, you're like, I can't do this. If you chicken out, you got to pay for everybody's dinner, right?
Ooh.
But if everybody thugs it out, gets it done, we get a random person from either the restaurant, whether they work there, whether they're, eating there, whatnot, whatever. They judge who has the worst outfit. And whoever has the worst outfit, the person that picked that outfit wins. And then they get their dinner paid for by everyone else. Person who wore the worst outfit, they get to pick like an appetizer or dessert for free or whatever.
Nice.
Anyway, this shirt was part of the outfit. And actually made it into my closet. I rarely wear it. But when I do, it's literally just like, I think I'll wear this today. Right?
But you know what? It's not even like a terrible outfit. So not even a terrible shirt, but is it because they thought you would never wear it? Is that what it is?
It's the stuff they paired it with.
Okay.
I'll have to show you a photo.
Okay. It's a whole
experience.
experience.
It's a whole thing.
Okay.
Because you get a $50 limit. I mean, hats, gloves, apparel, jewelry, the whole nine, right? So it got ugly. But this actually made it into my wardrobe. But I just wear it whenever I feel like it. Just
cool.
There's no rhyme, no reason. In fact, in the parking lot this morning, Dave and Casey stopped it. And they're like, what are you doing? Dave was like, are you going to a luau? What's going on, man? And he was like, and you're wearing pants with it, like not even shorts.
Right?
And I was like, look, there's no rhyme or reason for why I dress the way I just do.
Good.
Right.
Good.
And it was funny because as I'm thinking about the conversations I had this morning and where the shirt even came from, it flows so perfectly with our conversation today.
Okay.
What happens when people treat their religion like I treat my wardrobe?
Oh,
it's just what I feel like today.
Okay, I see what you did there.
Yeah, you see, you like that? It's just a vibe. I walk in the closet and this is what I want to do today, or this is what was handed to me by someone else, and I don't know much about it, but like this is what I'm going to put on today. This is what I'm going to put on for the rest of my life even. So I know you did some studies when it comes to other religions and all that. So tell me a little bit about what even got you into doing those studies.
Yeah, it's ever since I was like honestly a little girl, I think I've always had a fascination with God and religion. Obviously when you're a little kid, you don't fully understand everything, but you can watch something and be like, wow, this captivates me, right? This takes my attention. As I got a little bit older, I started getting introduced to different things, mostly through reading. I was a big reader. That was like sort of my escape into the world. So I read a lot of fiction, a lot of, if I'm honest, a lot of books where like the central character was like a teenage girl, getting some kind of power, being able to like, get out of her environment, beat the bad guys, like that kind of escapism kind of thing, which made sense, I think, for where I was, feeling kind of a little trapped in my environment. And so alongside that, I think it opened up this world into not just like, superhero power, but like witches, teenage witches, that kind of thing. And as I got into my teenage years, a lot of the stuff I was reading was in that realm.
Gotcha.
And so at a certain point it comes from like, oh, you're reading just a cool little story to like, some of this starts to feel like, what if this could happen? What if this is whatever? And I think so I dabbled a bit when I was in my teenage years. with some of like the occultic kind of stuff because of what I was reading. And so I started looking into it. I was raised in a Pentecostal background, like old school Pentecostal. So
Okay.
there was enough fear of God still in me. And I don't mean the fear of God of like reverence holy, but fear of God,
Like
like
scared.
he's going to come down
Yeah.
and smite me. That didn't allow me to like pursue very heavily then. But I did look at it with like a ton of curiosity. And then when I got into college, again, just with this fascination of religion, and really the guiding question is like, how is it that across all of time, all different cultures, all different regions, some type of religion has developed and people follow it? It's like, you can't go anywhere and not see some kind of something in place.
Yeah.
And that question fascinated me. And I was like, man, why? So I just started taking a bunch of like religious studies classes, even though it wasn't my major. It was just like, it wasn't even something I was like, I want to go to school for. It was like, I use any of my extra, what are those things called? I forget now. The extra classes that you get. And I just took religious study classes. And I'd take, I took Judaism and Islam and Christianity. And then I took all of the Eastern religions and, meaning of death and like, kind of philosophy, religious classes and stuff. And I don't know, I just liked it. The problem is that in college, I didn't have enough grounding in my Christian faith. So that kind of like dwindled away because I just kept getting met with no answers when I had questions about Christianity, but a ton of answers everywhere else. And so that kind of led me into like, well, this Christian thing is most likely not truth. And let me kind of just veer off into whatever else is there.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Did you tend to find a lot of similarities between all of the other religions?
There are some. I mean, here's the thing, like we want to blanket, and this is a thing you'll hear a lot. And I think the people who say this is because they don't actually study the religion that they're talking about. And they're kind of like, well, all religions are like the same thing. And I'm like, not really, right? If you really go into like the founding of it, if you go into the actual principles behind it, what are their stances on certain things, they're not actually all the same. There are some that have common through lines, common stories, and it's because religion, for most people across, again, time, centuries, or ever, was used to explain the world around them, right? Like everybody sees that this big hot yellow thing goes up in the sun during the day. Why? We have these questions of why. And so over the centuries, people have developed their own theories, their own ideas of what it is. And then now, of course, we're in this like science age or whatever. So science is trying to explain it, but science can only go so far too, right? Science doesn't tell us exactly why or how. It just has theories, just like the other things we're talking about. So at the time, I just didn't run into anybody who could talk to me about the Christian faith in a way that seemed logical. And I saw that as like a huge downfall, like a big red flag. Excuse me. So things have changed a lot, obviously, for now, because I've come to understand a lot. One of the biggest things that I tell people now that are like jumping around between faiths is like, can you just study one really deeply? Like get to the end of it. And see where you come up. Because I am convinced 100% if you get to the end of it, you're going to realize that it's lacking. And it's all just going to point you right back to Christ. So
you just kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask, after finding the curiosity for all these other religions and finding the lack of answers in Christianity, what brought you to Christianity?
Supernatural encounter with Jesus Christ.
Tell me about that.
I mean, that's really what it was. I mean, to be fair, I think there are a lot of barriers to Christianity, right? And the reason for it is because I do believe it's the truth. And so there are spirits at play. There are very real barriers to not wanting you to get to the truth. So I understand it. So I had some trauma to deal with. I had the way that I grew up to deal with. I had my logic, like all of these things were coming into place. And I was at a place where I would say around 22, one of my best friends passed away really suddenly, was in a pretty bad breakup, was going through health issues. I just kind of looked around at the world around me and was like, there is no God. How can there be a God if all of these bad things are happening? And if there is no God, there's no need to be good, really, because look at my friend. She was so good. She was like one of the, you know, these people, and I know people always talk like about this when people have passed on, but like, no, she like literally was like the warmest individual. She would give you everything. She was the person I called at night when I was walking through the street by myself. She always picked up, you know? And she died in like 6 months, bro. It was so fast,
Wow.
so brutal, like cancer. It was like this. And I had nothing to make sense of that at that age. And so I just looked around. I saw the world was cruel and everything was out of my control. It was crazy, you know? And so I ended up at like, there's no God. But if I try to go back looking at it, it's not that there was no God. It's like I'm really angry at my understanding of who God is or was supposed to be. I had a false understanding of that to begin with. I had no chance. I had no shot. So that's kind of where I was through my 20s until I got saved at 26. And honestly, I can't tell you about the supernatural encounter with God really unless I tell you everything that happened before.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, go for
Because
it.
it's going to be like, wait, what?
Go for it.
So at 22, all of this stuff happened, right? All this stuff started happening really negatively. Like, man, my life was in shambles. And I don't think that my brain coped well with everything that was going on. So I kind of look back at that time and I'm like, I lost my mind. If you want to think about like how you lose your mind, that was that period of time for me. I was literally like not in touch with like reality for a little bit. It was the only way I could cope with everything that was happening. So for a while, I sort of gave into all the like stereotypical, let's just go party, let's go drink, let's go do the stuff, let's go, you know, be promiscuous, let's do all of those things to kind of deal with all of the trauma and all of the other stuff that I was going on with. And then at a certain point, that didn't satisfy anymore. Like I couldn't cover up like this deep like depression, sorrow that I had. I was a pretty functional depressive person for a few years. Like I was able to mask and hide and go to work and party all night and show up at work the next day and like just keep going. And then I crashed. It was just like, I can't get out of bed. I don't want to do this. I don't want to live. And it got really, really bad. So my mom actually came and like picked me up from I was living in New York at the time and she was in Jersey. And like, I went over there because they were like afraid for like where I landed. And in that space, I kind of had a choice, which was give in to like all of the voices that are telling me like nothing's ever going to get better, kill yourself, do all that, or get up and fight, like do something about this. And that day I had a little small voice just be like, you can't practically do this right now, so you got to get up and go do something. So I went for breakfast and then I went right back to my old life partying. But that night that I went out, I went to some party and, you know, substances involved and all this stuff. But like, I remember them wanting to do this like capoeira, which is like a Brazilian mixed martial arts thing.
Yeah.
But man, I don't know, something happened in that moment. It just felt so spiritual. I thought I was seeing angels dancing. Like that's what it looked like to me at that time. Whatever it was made me like, I want to do something. Like I hadn't felt that in such a long time. I like had no desire for anything. So I go sign up for this capoeira class.
Okay.
Thinking this is going to be it. This is the answer. I was 2 classes in before I did like realize, yo, I am too weak and so inflexible and I can't do any of this. So I need to find a way to get flexible and strong and then I can come back to this. Enter yoga.
Okay.
So this is how like I kind of started. Yoga for me was that door that opened up all of like this entire other world, this occult world. And I know people have their...
Pause right there for just a moment.
Yeah.
You're how old at this point?
I've got to be like 24.
So you have been through your religious studies.
Mm-hmm.
So you're entering into yoga with a little bit of this knowledge of history. And, okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. But also coming into it with yoga specifically, like I didn't go into it thinking it was going to be a spiritual experience.
Right.
I literally was like, I'm coming to stretch and get strong. And I see those people are bendy. Let's go over there. But it's crazy because like all these things start working at the same time. So at the time that I go into yoga, I end up finding it to be a very spiritual experience for me. I do. Like there is sort of this I don't know, this inner something going on that I'm releasing, and I end up falling into like, let me learn more about this in not just the physical sense, but in the spiritual sense. And I get very wrapped up into that world. Alongside that, I went with a friend to a tarot reader.
Okay.
And so this is like super typical, by the way, when your life is in chaos and shambles and you're like, you want answers, right? And like, here's something saying, hey, I've got answers.
Yeah.
Come here. This is going to make sense of like the mess that you're going on. So I go with my friend and I sit down for a reading, and yeah, what she said was accurate. I'm like, yo, how does she know some of this stuff? But what I realized while she was reading my cards is that she wasn't really looking at the cards. So she was putting down cards, and I'm like, well, what does that mean over there? But she wasn't really talking, and whatever it was just irked me. My control issues, my need to want to know all things. So she's like, well, if you want to know more, you got to come back, pay more money, of course, come back for a longer reading. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do that. I did it once, paid for the longer reading, came back, very on the money stuff. But there was still stuff that I'm like, why aren't you telling me about this? What's this card? What's that? And like, she wouldn't go into it, and it irked me so much. So I said, I'm going to have to learn how to do this myself.
Wow.
So I can get my own answers. That with yoga, with learning about the Kundalini and the chakras and the healing and the stones and the tarot, that became my world. I became completely engrossed in it.
Wow.
And that's where I operated for 2-3 years. Very quickly, I like picked up the gift of tarot really quickly. And I was able to sit with literally anyone, read cards, and I don't know, I'm going to say like 7-8 months in, I stopped needing the cards too.
Wow.
So I would use them to make people feel comfortable, because people feel more comfortable when they think something's coming from a card. Then like, I could just sit with you and just be like, here's your life. That's kind of scary, So that was my world for like 3 years.
Wow.
And I just sat, I read people's cards. I didn't have a business or anything, because I was like, no, I'm going to do this to help people. And like, I'm never going to charge. And, because it's all very altruistic. And, I'm going to help whoever wants to help. Or like, sometimes I would just see people struggling and be like, hey, do you mind? Do you want to just sit with me? Or I'd know what was going on with them. I'd be like, hey, let me do this card reading. But it's really, I just like wanted to get these things out for them, you know? And it was effective. I mean, I never met with somebody they were like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it was always so on the money. And I thought I was helping people. I really thought I was helping people. But, that wasn't the truth. That came to an end too. I got into some really crazy spaces, some really dark spaces within that world as well, because it's kind of like a drug, right? Like, you start off here, but you end up needing more and more and more and more. And at that time, I think the thing I was seeking most, because of some of the traumatic experience I had been through, was power and safety. And I had that. Like, I could see people coming like a mile away. I could tell if people's auras were off, their chakras were off. I could tell if someone was dangerous. I could tell, but like, and I could defend myself before they were coming. And all of that really appealed to me. But if you would have asked me then, is what I'm doing demonic? No. Right? Because demons are scary and demons are bad.
Right.
And in fact, are there some people who are operating with demons doing this stuff? Yeah, but not me. I'm a light worker.
I'm a light witch.
I'm
the good witch.
Yes, I'm the good witch. Yeah, I'm the good witch, And I remember, because there's a difference. I remember during this time, we went to go with the same friend, went to go see one of her friends who was like a witch. She was like high up in whatever, I forget what they're called right now, covens that they're in.
Okay.
She also had the gift of tarot, but like, her cards were dark cards. Like, I never used, when you go into a store, you can, there's all kinds of different decks, different themes, blah, blah. Some of them are light and fairies and blah. And then some of them are like, you look at it, there's a demon on this, you know what I mean? That she was that kind.
Okay.
And so I remember walking into the space and everything was dark and shrouded. I have never been so scared in my entire life. Like, it was scary. And I was like, Yeah, we don't really gel here. We don't mix. I do believe that was God still like looking out
Yeah.
for me in that space, you know? Um, so yeah, so this is kind of the delusion I guess that I was under, that I'm good. I'm doing good. I am a light worker.
Yeah.
Um, no idea of like demonic or God or any of that. I'm working and I've got this gift. Never once during that time did I ask, where did this gift come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't think to ask,
Wow.
like, at all.
See, it's crazy. As you're talking, I'm thinking about Second Corinthians 11, where it
Mm-hmm.
says Satan masquerades as an angel of
Yep.
light,
Yep.
right? And so it's this idea that there's so many people, there's so many Christians even who are kind of like one foot in, one foot out. I use Christians very lightly. They'll come to church, they'll
Mm-hmm.
but then they also dabble in this, they also dabble in that, and
Yeah.
it's well, no, 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 exactly what you said. Well, demons are bad, demons are scary. I'm not that person. I'll
Mm-hmm.
never forget. I had a youth student, previous youth student. They had graduated, and it was one of those students where like, oh, they always find you in the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, she was one of the few that would actually come on Friday nights to youth group and Sunday mornings. And so after she graduated, she just was coming to Sunday mornings, and she would always come and find me and just let me know what's going on. And I'll never forget one time she asked for prayer and some counsel and whatnot. And she had told me that she had been going to to see a
Psychic.
psychic. And, I just asked her, I said, why? And she was like, well, I just, I wanted to, find out some things. I wanted to know some things. And I was like, and I use the classic dad line that no one wants to hear. I was like, but you know better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it was this kind of, I didn't know it was as dark as it was until it was too late.
Yeah.
Right? Like I didn't know it was what it was until it had a hold of me, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And sadly, I feel like a lot of people are in church, right? But they're also in these spaces that they don't realize are actually as dark as
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
So tell me what drew you out? Like what?
So remember I mentioned my fascination with going to the end of things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what happened. I got to a space where like I was at a peak of all of the powers. I mean, I was like hearing things, seeing things, like all of this stuff. Um, and my goal was always like to heal myself. That
Mm.
was my goal in this, right? I want to heal myself. I want to protect myself from all these things. And I got to like a very kind of high point with all of the things.
Yeah.
And dude, I had a nightmare.
Hmm.
And the nightmare is really what did it. I was like,
Wow.
how am I still, after all of these years, all this protection, all this safety, blah, blah, now I'm getting attacked in my sleep again. And this is not right. And it kind of completely undid me.
Wow.
And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I thought I was like, I was walking at the top where I felt so healthy. Like, my body was like the best it had ever been. Mentally, I was like sharp. All the things are working right in my favor. I've got this gift. I've got da da da, blah, blah. I've done all of this work. I did this. I did that. Da, da, da. And in an instant, one nightmare,
Mm.
like, made me realize, like, oh, actually, I'm not healed.
Wow.
Actually, I'm still in the same space that I was in. I just have like all this new makeup on, a
Mm.
new disguise on, but like the core of all of my issues were still there.
Wow.
And so I was like, I didn't know what to turn to. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not like I was like, oh God, that's not what happened. I had battled suicidal tendencies and thoughts for most of my 20s. And so that's where my brain went first. Like, I'm checking out. I'm done. I've done everything I can on this side of earth that I know to do,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing's working. And that night, I had a supernatural encounter with God. And I just remember being like, I've tried everything I can do. And I like heard a voice, and I don't hear audible voice of God like that. And at that time, I didn't even know that it was an audible, like it was God, because I was used to hearing things
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes. But it did feel different. Like it sounded different. It felt different. It was very, but it was just like a question, like, have you really done everything?
Mm.
That was
Mm.
the question that I was confronted with that night. And it like shook me. Like, I remember just like coming straight out of everything and just like almost a soberness of like,
Yeah.
whoa. Um, and for me, I got very clear instructions, which sounds really unbelievable, but I did. Like I got like get up, Google non-denominational church in Montclair, New Jersey, like very specific. And I was like, none of this makes sense. But that's why I got up and like I Googled it, because at the time there was also this like, if you get a mission, you complete the mission kind of thing to the occult stuff that I was doing. So I was like, maybe I gotta save somebody from the church. I don't know, you know? So I was like, fine, like let me get up. And I found this church and I was like, church, I can't go to church. I work on Sundays. Which like so dumb, right? Because I'm just seconds ago like, I'm gonna take my life with them. Now I'm like, oh, I can't go to church, right? But they happen to have a Saturday night service. And I was like, okay, I'll check out the Saturday night service. And so I went to that by myself, didn't tell anybody. And let me tell you, so for all the light work that I was doing, when I tried to step foot in that church, I felt all the demonic oppression. Like I felt a physical pushing back on my body as I was trying to enter to the church.
Wow.
It was crazy. And had I not been, you know, I'm stubborn by nature. I'm defiant by nature, I guess. But it was hard. And I remember I took a seat in the back and they were singing. And it was like nails on a chalkboard.
Wow.
Not their song, not how they sounded. I'm sure they sounded great. But to my spirit, it was just like I was irritated. I was feeling so angry, like flustered, like I got to get out of here. But like I'm waiting on that voice again because it sounded so different and like what's going on, you know?
Wow.
And I remember having that like battle, literally sitting there.
That's crazy.
And I just remember saying like to the voice, I'm like, if you don't come back right now, I'm gonna get up and walk out of here. Like I can't do this. And the song ended. So, this little guy, I'm sorry, I don't mean to say that. This guy came up on stage and he preached a sermon that I had never heard before. Like I was used to hearing about God being angry and hellfire and all of that. That's where I left off with God, you know? And instead, the message that he was talking about here was about dreams and dreaming again.
Wow.
And my very issue that brought me here was a nightmare. And so that day they did an altar call and they, you know, it was pretty specific, but I was like, I'm not going up there. This is not, you know, whatever. But then he called again a second time and he was very specific. And I was like, ooh, like I know this is me, but no way am I getting up there. It's a big church. They have jumbo screens. I'm not like all of this, whatever. Then he called a third time and then he came over to the side that I was sitting on. And he is like, there's somebody else still missing from here because a bunch of people were up there. And he's like, what we're going to do is we're going to wait.
Wow.
Until that person comes up. And he put the mic down and he crossed his arms and just waited in that section.
Jeez.
And then I was just like, so like I reluctantly get up. I go to the back of the group that's already there. And like they literally made way for me. And they're like, this is who we're going to pray for. This is who we're waiting on. And laid hands on me. Spoke a prophetic word over me and I just started sobbing. I broke down and like I couldn't make sense of everything that was going on in that moment, but I knew something happened. And so that began my journey with Christ there. I wasn't, although I raised my hand and gave my life, I didn't really. Like I was just like, something's happening, so I'm going to respond to whatever's happening. I don't get it. And rushed out of there, skipping a few parts of the story, but over the next few months, I dug in hard. The same thing that I did with everything else is like, if this is the truth, I got to go in. And I when I say I consumed the Bible, I read the Bible in 90 days.
Wow.
I was spending hours, like front to back, the whole thing. Could I understand most of it? No, I was going way too fast. But I was like, I got to know what's in here. And so I was just like really on fire to figure out this supernatural experience that I had that I couldn't explain. And then everything that I had been like fighting like against, I guess, with the word of God and all that stuff. And so after 2 months, I went to a conference. And in that, it was like a youth conference or a young adult conference. And in that they had a specific message. And like, I remember the veil dropping like completely, like everything made sense. I saw Jesus, like I felt Jesus with me. I realized that everything else I was doing was not it.
Wow.
And that's when I truly gave my life to Christ that day. And I kind of renounced everything else, like everything that was in that world
Yeah.
or before, including my tarot cards
Mm.
and my chakras and my healings and all that stuff. And that was brutal.
Yeah.
Because God took away some of my things immediately, like some vices. Like I no longer felt the need to go drink. No one told me don't go drink. It literally did not satisfy my flesh anymore. Like I didn't feel like going to the bar anymore. I didn't feel like going out to a club anymore. It just went away like out of nowhere, right? But with my tarot cards and with that world, that was a spiritual bond that I had to break.
Mm.
So I remember my mom and my grandmother. My mom got saved a couple months after I did, but she came over and my grandmother came over and we prayed and we got rid of all the tarot cards, cut them up, burned them up, all of the stones, anything that had to do with that world, all the yoga stuff, like everything. And I sobbed like if somebody took my baby.
Wow.
Like it was this horrendous like thing. And then everything went black. And that was terrifying. Like I couldn't hear anything anymore. I couldn't see the things I was used to seeing about people. Like it was almost like not a physical blindness, but like a spiritual blindness. Like I couldn't tell, and it was terrifying. And it was that moment of like, or am I really going to trust God to be my protector, my safety, or am I not? Am I going to go back to these cards that give this false sense of protection, this false sense of safety, but really are just leading me straight to hell? And I chose God and gave up that gift, and I gave up all of that stuff. And I just dove all the way into Jesus, the gospel, and man, my life changed so dramatically from that moment forward. So yeah, this is why I couldn't tell you about the moment until I told you about the other stuff.
First of all, shout out, if you're watching, whoever that pastor was.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. He is a gangster in the gospel.
Yeah.
To be leading under the leading of Holy Spirit and to be like, we ain't done yet.
Yep.
Right. I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah.
I've been in some atmospheres like that where the pastor was just so in tune with what Holy Spirit wanted to do right there. And it wasn't about show. It wasn't about that's a whole other thing that just makes me so angry when pastors play with the power of God and casting out demons and things like, and it's really about getting the clip for Instagram.
Yeah.
It's really about, it's a whole other topic, but the pastors who are so in tune with and willing to wait for people, willing to wait for Holy Spirit to do what Holy Spirit wants to do, because in those moments, it can be so easy. I'm speaking from experience. It can be so easy as a pastor to be like, well, I don't want to be like awkward. I don't want to be weird. I don't want to pressure anybody. Like, let Holy Spirit do what Holy Spirit's going to do. I can pray and say amen, and Holy Spirit could work on them in the car. But there are some moments where Holy Spirit wants to do something right there at the altar.
Yeah.
And you just need to be patient and willing. To those of you who are watching and you're like, I don't know about all this. Like, that's her story. That's this. Bro, let me tell you, it's real. Satan has real power. Like I don't know how else to say that other than he is a fallen angel, a spiritual being with spiritual power. Now, is he the most powerful? No, but he actually does have power. We see this in the Bible even, right? One of the earliest stories I can remember in the Bible that freaked me out a little bit and was like, wait, just kind of mind blowing was Saul in 1 Samuel 28. I think it is, when he goes to see a medium. And just give you guys some background, the Spirit of God had left Saul because of disobedience and greed and things like that. And so Saul is about to go into battle. He has no guidance, he would usually hear from the prophet or hear from God himself saying, this is what you need to do. I'll be with you, blah, blah, blah. He's got none of that. So he's freaking out. And so he decides to go see a medium. And he goes to see the medium, and the medium actually does what she does, right?
Yeah.
Like the Bible talks. She literally called back. Now, there's some debate on this. Some people are like,
actually,
was it really the spirit of Samuel? Like, we don't really know. I think that was deception, whatever. We can fight about that another time. But she does what she was asked to do. She calls back a spirit that actually converses with Saul,
Yeah.
right? And I can remember as a kid, I'm like, well, wait, so you mean to tell me this isn't just some,
Right.
fairy tale,
Yeah.
witches and goblins and whatever? Like, no, there are actually people who have spiritual power and spiritual authorities, but it's from the wrong side.
Yeah.
Right. And that the thing that always gets me as an adult when I look back at this story, Samuel found himself wanting to hear a voice, wanting that, as you were saying, that like protection to be able to see
Mm-hmm.
what's coming and know what to do and all this. But in Saul's story, I said Samuel, I meant Saul. In Saul's story, the reason why the voice of God had left him was because of his own disobedience
Mm-hmm.
and greed,
Mm-hmm.
right? I wonder how many people in the church or otherwise feel like, man, God has left me, so I have to go to these other extremes
Yeah.
because I want to feel something. But God didn't leave you; you left Him,
Yeah.
right? Like, and we're looking for these ways to fill that hole. We're looking for these ways to feel this connection. I have so many conversations with young people, mostly, but not always, and their whole thing is like, I don't feel God the way I want to. I don't feel God the way I want to. And almost every time the conversation lands on, okay, well, what are your habits?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and you kind of got to this. Are you seeking God with the same ferocity, with the same diligence as you would when you're studying your tarot cards,
Mm-hmm.
as you are when you're, seeking whatever else it is?
Yeah.
And oftentimes the answer is, well, no.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, so you've walked away from God. You are not truly trying to seek Him anymore. And you wonder why you can't feel His presence. You wonder
Yeah.
why you can't, converse with Him.
Yeah.
Always, always freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Always freaks me out a little bit. But I had to say that for those of you watching who are like, ha, 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 I don't know about all that. It's real. The
Yeah.
Bible confirms
Yeah.
Satan does have power. Speaking of power and how it's real, when we get to the vibrations and the
Mm-hmm.
frequencies and the healing and on one side we call it prophecy,
Mm-hmm.
on God's side we call it prophecy, on the other side we call it mediums and psychics and
Yeah.
things like that. There's these real things, right?
Yeah.
um Give me your definition of the difference.
Yeah. So something as I was like really coming into reckoning and understanding like why I needed to let go of one to have the other,
Mm,
that like really struck me is that God's kingdom is the true kingdom. It's the right kingdom. But Satan also has a kingdom. And everything that is in God's kingdom is also in Satan's kingdom. It's just a counterfeit of it. There's
mm,
everything. So if you want to line up territories, angels, like everything all the way down, there's always a counterfeit of it. Some of it is really easy to spot because it's evil, right? We see
right.
an evil perversion of something, but some of it is harder to spot because it looks like good. Coming back
Mm,
to your light piece, right? So when I think about something like the gift of prophecy, and so I have to come back a little bit because once I started learning about the gifts in the Bible, I was really nervous. I was so nervous because it seemed so close to
mm-hmm,
this other space. I was afraid of the gift of tongues because I'm like, am I inviting a demon in?
mm,
Like, I just left that place over there. I don't want to go back. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? I was nervous about the prophetic word because am I leaning on that? Like, what line is it? Right. But the difference here is the gift from God is, first of all, I find that it's not a constant, ever flowing tap. It is when it's necessary, right?
Mm,
And so I'm not constantly having a prophetic word for someone. It
mm,
doesn't work that way. If God wants me to say something to somebody, He will give me something to say.
mm,
My tarot cards work all of the time, like
mm,
all of the time. The way that they work, and I needed to understand that too, is so in Leviticus, it talks about something called a familiar spirit.
mm,
That's what mediums, psychics, tarot card readers, all those people, that's what they're using. They might not know it, they don't know the name, but that's what they're doing. And familiar spirits are spirits that essentially hang around everyone and they just observe And this is what comes back and feeds these mediums and tells them that, oh yeah, your great grandmother had a little cardigan sweater that was red and had a little rose on it. And now you're like, oh yeah, it is grandma. Like, it's always one little detail, one little fact that will get you to believe whatever else the rest that they have to say. And I understand, you think about, people, mediums and stuff, they're seeking comfort, right? They're looking for some kind of closure with a loved one it's comforting to think like, oh yeah, someone can call them back and tell them that I'm safe now in heaven or whatever. But what is that replacing?
Right.
That's replacing our faith in God. And I always come back to that. Like, there is a dependency that I have to have on God when I'm working with him and even with all of the gifts, right? And they're meant to edify and build up the church.
Yeah.
That's its use. The use is not to go then and make me a bunch of money and give people 20 minutes of your time here, but you want more, you got to give me 100 here. Or you want more, go buy this expensive crystal that's $500, and now you're in debt because somebody is withholding information from you, right? Like, you have to look at the lines there. And so I think everything in God's kingdom is about journey, time, patience, long suffering, like those fruits, they're there. Everything on the other side is about getting you to rush through something. And like, that to me is a clear line. If I'm offering you a shortcut in this capacity, the shortcut is usually, and I talk about this all the time, the shortcut is usually going to end in a consequence that was not intended, that's usually negative.
Yeah.
And that's what we see on this other side. And I get that there are things, again, like, talking about like Reiki and like all of these other energy healings, and they seem good, but I've seen people get healed. Well, yeah, I saw people get some breakthroughs while I was doing tarot as well. But ultimately, if I'm a Christian, did it lead them to Christ?
Right.
And if the answer is no,
then it's going to lead them to death.
Then it's leading them to death. And then no matter how good they feel in the moment, what kind of breakthrough they had, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's this is what I need people to understand, in the church or otherwise. If you believe me or not, it's just in the Bible. In the very beginning, God's instructions to Adam and Eve were, don't do this because it leads to death.
Yeah.
Right. Now, it wasn't the death that they thought. It was the kind of death that snuck up on them and ended up punishing them in ways that they couldn't imagine. Right. But it always leads to death, right? Which, okay, take it to the New Testament. And as Paul writes in Galatians chapter 1, he's like, there's only one gospel, right? Like, we're not mixing this with a bunch of, like, there's just one thing, anything else. He actually says, if I or anyone else or an angel from heaven preaches anything other than the gospel of Jesus Christ or mixes anything in there, he's like, let them be under a curse, right? And so it's like, there's only one way, and anything else, like you said, no matter how good it makes you feel in the moment, is going to lead to death, right? It's, you mentioned the Reiki and the healings and all that kind of stuff. I know people who are bent on, frequencies, vibrations, all that kind of stuff, and they're like, oh, there's healing properties and there's this, and like I have the ability to heal people's wounds and pains and all this kind of stuff. And I look at them and I say, there's some truth to that, right? I can point to First Samuel, where David is called to play the harp, right? And I was just talking to the worship team a couple of weeks about this, and I was encouraging, kind of speaking to our musicians. I said, a lot of you look at our worship leaders, our singers, as like, oh, these are the guys leading worship. And I was like, no, every single one of you on this platform who has an instrument in your hand, who is doing something toward this service, you're leading worship. And I took them back to 1 Samuel 16. I said, David didn't sing a song. He didn't open his mouth, right? In fact, when Saul was being terrified by the evil spirit, his advisors mentioned David. So there's a young man in the house of Jesse in Bethlehem, and he plays the harp, and they say all this stuff, and then they say the Lord is with him, right? It's very clearly the Lord who is using this thing to heal. And so when people look at me and say, oh, well, crystals have healing properties, and burning sage in my house, and this and this and this and this. The problem that I have with all of these is, where does the glory go back to? Right? If I'm worshiping these crystals, or if I'm worshiping anything other than God, I can look at a musician and say that musician is anointed by God, and every time they play, like, I just feel the atmosphere is lifted and all this. The moment I say it's that musician's frequency that is the blessing, or No, it's the Holy Spirit that
Yeah.
is moving, and that's where I find the danger.
Yeah.
The biggest danger, obviously, is Satan is trying to receive God's glory.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it boils down
Yeah.
to.
And that Satan trying to receive the glory, but also we're trying to receive the glory.
Mm,
And a lot of this space, particularly like the occult, is really comes back to trying to make you you are God. You are your own God.
mm,
And that is, so I need the glory for this, right? Because again, you're not thinking about, well, where is this power actually coming from? You think it's coming from me. I am doing this, or
yeah.
the universe is bestowing this on me, and like, because I am special, or I am this, and like, as humble as you try to be without that tethering to God, pride is going to swell up somewhere,
Mm,
somehow. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Even for me, I'm thinking about, like, because I could see people coming, I saw all this stuff, like, why would I need God? And so I would
Mm,
get upset with people telling me that I needed God. Like, I was
wow.
one of those people that be like, what are you talking about with God? I couldn't understand my grandmother, for example, trying to warn me about hell. And I'd be like, so you're sitting here, like, look at all these people that I help. I help so many people. I do all these good deeds, right?
Mm,
Not understanding the gospel at all.
yeah.
But like at that time, like, I do all of these good deeds. I help people with these gifts. What do?
Wow.
Right? You go to church on Sunday, but that's it. That's all you do. Who are you helping? And I remember having those like arguments with her, right? Which it's been so beautiful now to come to faith and be able to have different kinds of conversations with her, right? But like, that's where I was, right? Because how can you tell me that I'm going to hell when I'm helping people? Because helping people is good.
Mm,
But if you don't understand what we're actually meant to be doing, then it's harmful. And I grieve that a lot. And I have to just trust that God, for all the people who sat with me during those times, I have to pray to God that the Holy Spirit will encounter them in a different way, that I didn't open up a door for them that's deeper.
mm,
And I sit with that sometimes, because I do have, some of my former students who I know spent a lot of time with me during that time period and saw what I was doing. And like, they're still in that world, they're still in that space.
yeah.
And so I have to pray for them. And I have to let go of the guilt of that as well, because there is some guilt there of like, man, I just didn't know any better. I
Mm,
just didn't know what I was dealing with,
yeah.
And these things start off, I mean, even talking about like horoscopes and stuff, people checking their birth charts, all of that stuff is just like, man, the line is so slippery,
Mm,
and that's really what it is. It's coming back to, I want to be the captain of my ship,
yep.
instead of let me steward the ship that I've been given from God. Let me sit and wait and be patient on and wait on the Lord. All of this other stuff is like, no, I want an answer right now. I
Yeah.
want to get out of this right now. And so we end up in the same hole. You end up having that nightmare again. You end up having that panic attack again. You end up being mistrustful, or you're not trusting other people. You are paranoid. You end up getting involved in drugs or drinking, like all of this other stuff that's clearly showing not good fruit, because
Yeah.
the enemy is lying to you and telling you that, hey, you deserve the glory. You
Mm,
need the glory. Come over here and do this thing.
yeah.
And so I think it's really dangerous, because especially in this place, talking about like not going all in, this new agey stuff, what it does is it just borrows like bits and pieces, kind of coming back to your conversation at the beginning of like, what wardrobe do I want to wear today, what clothes do I want to wear. They borrow bits and pieces from every different
Yeah.
religion, and
Yep.
then are like, here you go, here's the platter,
Yeah.
and like make it make sense. You can't
Yeah.
follow through on any of these things. You can't follow it far enough to figure out anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into a new age store, which I used to frequent all the time, because that's where I used to get my cards and my things, blah, blah. It's not just one, it's like all of the religions.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's just clutter when you go into these stores and you have all of these spirits vying for your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And that causes chaos. It doesn't cause peace.
Yeah.
Not really. Right? It's a counterfeit of something, which maybe you feel numb, maybe you feel protected, maybe you feel all these, but it's not the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. That's what we need to be pointing people to.
Yeah.
That's what we need to encourage people to feel bold enough to carry their cross through the pain of losing someone, through grief, through trauma,
Yeah.
through all of these things. I need to be a Christian who can walk with them as opposed to being like, hey, here's this like magical tarot card that's going to show you a piece of the truth, a
Mm-hmm.
version of the truth, right? That's going to
Yeah.
maybe give you comfort, which is going to prevent you from going to Jesus.
Yeah. I mean,
That's not good.
I'm just going to go back to the garden, right? That was the appeal of the
Mm-hmm.
fruit, of the forbidden fruit. The
Yeah.
appeal was you'll be like God,
Yeah.
right? And that just always, man, that when you talk about the two kingdoms, like that's really at the base
Yeah.
of Satan's kingdom is deceiving people, the chaos you were talking
Mhm.
about, the confusion, all of that. And then there's this false promise of I can make you like God, as you've been saying this
Yeah.
whole time, so that you don't have to depend on
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
right? And it
Well, this is
always
the crazy thing too. It's like, yeah, this will make you like God. But it's just like Satan, because we were already like God. You know, we were already, and that's what it is. It's just blurring that line a bit. We were created in his image. We were walking with him in the garden as friends.
yeah,
We had at that point, before eating, you know, before the tree of life or whatever, we presumably were meant to live forever.
right,
We were like God already. And so the perversion then comes in to tell them something that we're not.
yeah,
Right. So go look at what we're not. Go look at what you can't have, as opposed to like, let's look at the boundaries that exist for our protection, for our growth, for our safety. And so I think that's been really problematic with this space. And like, my heart is to eventually, when God releases me, like, I would love to go back in and talk with psychics. I would love to go back in and talk to tarot readers and all that. Because what's interesting is you talk to a lot of these people and they would consider themselves also religious. They would also claim Jesus,
yeah,
right? Like, as one of their gods. It's just not enough. It's not just Jesus.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's Jesus and particularly in my culture, you know, I'm Latina, or I'm half Latina or whatever. I grew up in that space. You do have in our Hispanic countries this crossover between Christianity and Santeria, which is witches. It's witchcraft. It's literally just witchcraft. In Caribbean nations, you have voodoo, you know, and like, and they're mixed in with, you know, Christian faith, with Catholic faith, with all of these things. We're going to dabble and mix them together. And because we have a problem with saying God is enough and that I can just depend on God, and that God is my protection, that God is my safety, that God is my provision. No, I'm going to go and give an offering to this witch because I need money. Like, you know what I mean? Or just in case I'm going to appease this. And then the doors that you open up generationally is, you don't know. So like, I remember going to a psychic a few times with my mom when I was younger. Like, I didn't go in, but I remember like I would be in the car and like she's in or whatever. And I, you know, and I remember she was going through her own like breakup trauma stuff. That's when she went to seek this out as well.
Okay.
So like, that door, like, I remember that, so that when I come into my 20s, it's not like this very foreign thing to me to go seek out a psychic. I remember my mom doing this when she was in her 20s. Not blaming mom. We're good. But you know, the doors that it opens there, and we have to be careful with those things, just like those books that I had at the beginning. And I'm not one of those people like, oh, you can't read Harry Potter, you can't like Pokemon and all that.
Right.
But if you're leaving your child unattended, you don't know what they're reading, you can't ask questions about how they're processing, you can't intervene in any capacity, then yes, those things are harmful.
Right.
Just like a television show that you don't know what your kids are watching, or music and you don't know what they're listening to, and all of that. Because as parents, we need to be in their lives, understanding how their brains are creating, or how their brains are adapting to what information they're receiving.
Oh yeah.
You know?
My dad was one, he took his role. He used to say, as man of the house, God has charged me to be priest, provider, protector.
Yeah.
He took all three of those roles too seriously. God rest
Did
his
he
soul.
though? Because you're sitting here as a
Well, you're right,
pastor.
you're
I
right,
mean,
you're
man of
right.
God.
But man, I remember he was the one that was like, we don't do Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it's Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon. One of those is like translates to like Pocket Demon or something like that.
Pocket Monster.
Or
Yeah.
Pocket
Pokemon.
Monster, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, we're not doing that, right?
Yeah.
We couldn't watch Harry Potter, all those kinds of things. And while I look back at it and I'm like, you know, it kind of is what it is, his reasoning still stands to this day.
Yeah.
And he said, when you're grown, you know, you make your own decisions, whatever. But he was like, as long as my children are children, and they don't know what doors are being opened.
Yeah.
It's my job to stand in front of those doors. It's
Yeah.
my job to, protect. It's my job to. And so with that, I'm not shaming any of the parents that let their kids play Pokemon or, watch Harry Potter, any of that stuff. But one thing my dad would also do with everything we watched, everything we did, I share with you about the music thing where he'd make us,
Brilliant.
type out the lyrics and read through them and, submit for, can we listen to this song? Can I add it to the playlist? He did that with movies and stuff too, right? Like in the middle of a movie, it's just getting good. He would pause it and be like, so what did you just see?
Yeah.
Like what is that? And he would always talk about like the deeper meaning, the symbolisms. Did you notice that upside down cross in the background? All that kind of stuff. And when I was a kid, I was like, come on, can we just watch the movie? Like, but as an adult, I realized what he was doing. He was teaching us how to stand guard over that kind of stuff, right?
So good.
And I think we're missing that as Christians in the church, especially. Again, I'm not going to say you can't play Pokemon or this or that, but I am going to say. So my wife and I have had the conversation because she, ever since she was little, has been a huge Harry Potter nerd. Like loves it. In fact, we're about to go for her birthday to go see it at like Broadway at the National. But her and I've had the conversation. Hey, this is not something that I want our children like delving headfirst into.
Yeah.
Again, when they're older and they have spiritual grounding and they can, Bible says work out your salvation with fear and trembling.
Right.
Even right down to, okay, we're getting into a whole parenting conversation now, but right down to, all the little things for like how our kids dress and all those kind of things. I'm going to protect as long as possible all those things. And when they get old enough to decide, now that spiritual standing guard of your family, I feel like has been all but lost.
Yeah.
With the movies we watch, the things we do, and then right down to us taking lightly the burning of sage and crystals and things like that. It's just been lost.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in such agreement with that, and that's why, like for me, although I like again, I don't. If people need to work out their own salvation, that 100% sure. For me in my house, right? For me in my house, there are things I don't feel comfortable with. So we don't watch Harry Potter. I don't watch witchy stuff at all because it directly reminds me of the life that I left behind. I don't feel comfortable with yoga, and that's a back and forth with a lot of people. They're like, can I do yoga as a Christian? Can I blah blah blah? Look, I don't know what Holy Spirit is telling you. Go. For me, that was a door that opened up and led me to all of these other things. I cannot divorce personally the spiritual from the physical with the yoga practice.
Right.
I just can't do it. I still remember all the stuff. So I can't just move forward in it. So I've tried to go back because honestly, it was my favorite form of working out. I don't like working out. I'm not a workout girly. Yoga, I loved. So I've tried to go back after I got saved, and I couldn't do it. Like my spirit was just like not sitting right. And I even went to Christian yoga. There's a Christian yoga spot nearby. I was like, maybe this. And I get there and I'm like, this still feels really icky. Like it's not it.
Yeah.
No matter if we try to replace this with that, I just know too much. And because I know too much, I can't pretend that I don't know it just to satisfy my flesh.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, it's not going to work. We're not going to do yoga.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, even books and stuff that like I need to be mindful of what my girls are reading as they're growing up because I know that was a huge doorway for me as well. So we've got to think about some of those things. But I want to say this, I don't think the right way to do it is to not talk about it at all.
Right.
Because they're going to run into the world and they're going to run into other people. So I want to give them a critical lens. I want them to be able to understand why we're not doing a particular thing. Age appropriate. My girls right now are 3 and about to be 1. So, we explain things the way that we can.
Right.
But as they get older, I want them to understand, like, we started talking about other religions earlier too. Like, here is a Muslim person. Here's what they believe. Here's why we don't believe that.
Yeah.
Here are the inconsistencies in that faith for us right now.
Yeah.
Here's some of the questions that I dealt with when I looked into this. You want to do some research? Go ahead. As a Christian, I can't be afraid of my child learning more about another religion.
Yeah.
Their faith needs to be tested as well.
Yep.
They need to come to that. And if I haven't done a good enough job of setting a foundation, then I can worry.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing my best to set that foundation of Christ, surely they won't depart from it later. You know what I mean?
I remember the first time I realized my dad had a Quran, and I was so like taken back. Like
Mhm.
I was just taken back. And I was like, what is what
Mhm.
what? You know? And then he started explaining like I need to know who I'm preaching
You've
to,
got to.
right? If I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna minister and disciple. He's like, I gotta know what they believe. I gotta know. And it was just like, oh. And it
Mhm.
just made so much sense.
Yeah.
So much sense.
Yeah.
Um Side note, how much study have you done in the faith,
So,
Islamic faith?
hey, I've dabbled in the Quran.
Okay.
Okay, I haven't read the whole thing. It's pretty and this could also be so like the Bible, right? We're used to our like Greco-Roman style of writing, right? Like this is in America, we speak English. It's one of those languages. You know what I mean? So like
Mhm.
the way it reads, to me the Quran reads very like all over the place.
Hmm.
It's not a succinct thing. You read the Bible's a story. You get a through line there. With the Quran, it's a bunch of Muhammad's writings, right? A bunch of his writings, and so they're sometimes like it just doesn't follow through. It's a difficult read. I'll say
Okay.
that, right? So I've read it. I've had some friends that are Muslim. I've talked a lot about the faith there. There are some things that were just like really incompatible with who I was when I was studying religions and
Okay.
stuff, you know? So I've dabbled, but ultimately could not come to alignment with that faith.
What do you think draws people to the Islamic faith?
So, I mean, this is a loaded question, right? We can't underestimate the influence of regionally where you grow up, right?
Mhm.
Because if it's what you know, it's your culture, that's going to be what you see all the time, and you're not going to question. Just like most Christians don't really question themselves until they get older or whatever the case may be.
Right.
If you're inundated with this messaging of this is how it is, that plays a part into that. So, one is definitely a cultural space of it. Two, I still, and then people are going to come for me to this, I love religions that have a deep reverence for God,
Mm.
even if their understanding of God is different than mine is. And you see that in Islam.
Mm.
There is a reverence to that faith when practiced correctly, because
Mhm.
just like in Christianity, there are cults, there are sides, there are people,
Right.
and there are also Muslim people who say they're Muslim but don't follow the
Right.
tenets.
Right.
When practiced the way that was intended, it's beautiful. The reverence that's there, I'm gonna stop everything I'm doing 5 times a day and pray to God. Have you ever seen that? Like I used to
Mhm.
work with someone who was Muslim, and literally like meetings day, like during the day, like literally stopping to
Doesn't
go in a
matter.
corner, take out their mat and pray. I've never had that kind of like,
Yeah.
like reverence and dedication to prayer that I'm going to stop in the middle of my workday meeting and be like, oh, sorry, I'll be right back. I got to go pray.
Right.
Right. That's beautiful. If you go the mosque and you see these beautiful mosques, that's gorgeous. The way that they have a deep reverence of God.
Yeah.
I could see that drawing people. And then there's an element to modesty that as Westerns we don't get. We
Mhm.
don't understand. We think that the women are oppressed. And are there subcultures within that faith that are oppressed?
For sure.
Yes. Are there subcultures in Christianity that are oppressed?
For sure.
Yes. Are there subcultures in religions that have, spaces that don't have religions that are oppressed? Yes. Right.
It's a human condition.
So I mean, but just within that, the women who I know who have chosen this life of modesty, who have
Yeah.
chosen to cover themselves, who have chosen, it's beautiful. If you really actually have a conversation with them without your judgmental perspective of like
Mhm.
Western, I want to be free, I should be able to show my body and blah, 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 blah. It's beautiful. They're
Yeah.
understanding their deep reverence of God.
You know what I've always found interesting is that in every religion, I've not done a ton of study of a bunch
Mhm.
of religions, but in every religion that I've seen certain things, a lot of the things that we deem as like beautiful, right,
Mhm.
are in the Christian faith as well,
Mhm.
right? Now, maybe not to those
Extremes.
specific extremes,
Yeah.
yeah. But for instance, the praying 5 times a day. Okay, this is Jewish
Pray without
faith, right?
ceasing.
Yeah,
Yep.
but even this is Jewish faith, right? And we see it played out even in the New Testament
Mhm.
that the church in Jerusalem prayed 3 times a day,
Mhm.
and who was it? It was Peter who in Acts chapter 10, I think it was, he was praying, and I believe it said at noon or close
Mhm.
to 3 o'clock, something like that. And
Yeah.
when you do the research, I believe it's 9 noon, and 3 o'clock, something like
Mhm.
that, where the Jerusalem times of prayer, it lines up with the times that sacrifices were
Mhm.
being given, before Christ
Yeah.
was the ultimate sacrifice. But this whole idea of a lot of things we see, even modesty, right? The Bible
Mhm.
talks about modesty even. So it's all these things. I wonder, and again, kind of a loaded question, but I wonder what it is that draws people to these specific things. For instance, earlier we started with the power and the light,
Mhm.
and being able to protect myself, not having to wait on God. And then
Mhm.
now we're at a religion like Islam, and it's the reverence and the modesty and
Mhm.
the devotion, and all these things are all true,
Yeah.
right? But all of these things are also offered in the Christian faith.
Yeah.
There is a power and an authority that comes with being a child of God and
Mhm.
operating in His power. There is the modesty, there is the devotion, there is the
Mhm.
reverence that should be there, right? Um, One of the things that I find interesting, and fight me on this later, I believe Satan knows us better than we know us.
Mhm.
And I believe that Satan will use anything at his disposal, including our traumas, including our strengths, our weaknesses,
Yeah.
anything that is there, right? So I had one guy ask me, "Hey, why do you think so many of the African American community is drawn to the Nation of Islam
Mhm.
and all that?" My answer is really, I believe it's a traumatic response.
Yeah.
I believe that a lot of African Americans were drawn to it because it's calling them to power from a
Yeah.
place of being oppressed, right?
Mhm.
It's calling them to, hey, no, you were created to be more. You were created to do more, right? Like, you have this inner power, you have this, and it's rise, fight the power,
Mhm.
all this stuff, right? And I believe it's just a trauma response, most of it.
Yeah.
Whether it's I want to belong to something because my father wasn't around, my family was broken, and the crazy thing is, all of this is still found in the Christian faith,
Mhm.
right? Like, we're literally called adopted sons and daughters.
Yeah.
And so you can find this family, you can find this rising above from being the oppressed, right?
Mhm.
But I feel like Satan comes to us with, I'm coming back to the Garden of Eden with the quick fix,
Mhm.
right? I have something that if you take a bite of this, you'll get it right now.
Yep.
Right now, you'll get what you're looking for,
Yeah.
versus this seemingly mystic God who you can't see, you can't
Mhm.
feel, you can't, which in the Garden of Eden was a different story. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah,
But
well, think about this as you're saying it, even with, Nation of, and you said, I believe, but it's not even a belief, it's a fact. I mean, it was founded with the purpose of rising up, right,
mm-hmm,
against the oppression, what they said is the white oppression. I mean, like, I was looking at this, they talk about all white people being like devils, essentially. Like, that's what
mm-hmm,
they call it. The name is Yakub, like kind of like Jacob. It looks like kind of like Jacob, but Yakub.
mm-hmm,
And that they believe that white people are devils, right? What does this do for me? Well, it makes it, if I villainize an entire group of people, it makes it so that I don't actually have to work on the oppression that I'm feeling, but I can jump into this anger place, this fight place, and
mm-hmm.
fight them all, as opposed to working through unity, because unity is harder.
Yeah.
Right? Having difficult conversations with people is harder. Showing grace to someone who hates you
Mm-hmm.
is harder. And that's the standard that we're called to in Christianity.
Yeah.
So the reality is, I don't want to meet the standards God has set before me. I'd rather take a shortcut because my pain, I just want to get rid of the feeling of the temporary pain. The problem is, they don't get rid of the feeling of pain. They live in a perpetual state of pain because they're constantly looking around their world. You're not going to get rid of all white people.
Right.
So you're constantly living a life of being triggered.
Mm-hmm.
You're not healed.
Yeah.
If you're constantly in a fight mode, you're not healed.
Yeah.
If you're constantly looking for it, you're not healed, right? And so this is the downfall, I think, of coming into spaces like this. Do I understand why people get attracted to it? Yeah. I think our church, Big C Church, has to do a better job of setting those foundations.
Mm.
And we don't do that. We want behavior change. If we're honest, we want to look on the outside like we're doing the job, but we're not as committed to what's going on the inside.
Yeah.
Overall, not individual churches do differently. I get that. But as a whole, I think we've been a little bit lax with that.
Mm.
And when I say church, I don't just mean like the like administration, the leadership. I mean us as the church. We are the church as
Yeah.
the bodies, right? I can easily I think about even when I'm dealing with my daughter sometimes, right? It's like, man, just do the thing.
Mhm.
I don't care if you understand why. I just want you to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to give you the why right now. I just need you to obey.
Yeah.
And I think, that has its time and place for certain things, but there are other times where no, I actually need you to understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think with our faith, our Christian faith, we need to take more time to help people understand their faith and how to wrestle
Mhm.
so that they don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I mean, on that point there, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I've got to go back to the whole oppression
Mhm.
and whatnot, because the church was asleep on the job.
Mhm.
The church allowed Christianity to be weaponized,
Yeah.
in that take it back to slavery days. Slaves weren't allowed to read, right? They weren't allowed to educate
Mhm.
themselves for fear of obvious things. But then there's also this idea that the specific Bible passages that were being read
Mhm.
oftentimes praised slavery, right?
Mhm.
So there's no context, there's no
Yeah, well, they
nothing,
had
but
Bibles that were ripped out of context, and
exactly,
the slave
exactly,
Bible.
right.
Yeah.
And so with that, when someone looks at someone and says, well, Christianity is the white man's religion, well, that one is, right?
Mhm.
But now I'm gonna go back to Galatians and say that's not the gospel,
Mhm.
right? That's not the full, complete
Yeah.
Jesus Christ gospel.
Yeah.
And so I've got to say that the church was asleep on the job,
Mhm.
right? The church allowed Christianity to be weaponized for too long in places like this, which then caused the trauma, which then caused the trauma responses,
Yeah.
right? Because we're not teaching people how to wrestle through their faith, how
Yeah.
to wrestle through, okay, I understand that this happened back then and whatnot, but that wasn't the gospel that I'm
Yeah.
preaching to you right
Yeah.
now.
There's even just a misunderstanding about the faith. We were talking about this earlier, but we have St. Augustine, who, was one of the early church fathers, who wrote, a lot of works that we come to understand our faith in. He was from Africa,
Mm.
and in the
Mhm.
Bible, we talk about the Ethiopian man who was there. I mean, there are elements of this that we kind of graze over. We don't talk about, even where all of these things happen, which was in the Middle East. I mean, those people are brown people.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And so for someone to come in and say, oh, that's the white man's religion. No, like there are certain things that have been co-opted, sure. But there are things in every religion that have been co-opted. Doesn't mean that that is what it was meant for.
Yeah.
And at the end, someone distorting the faith is not excuse for you not doing your own work and your own research. At the end of the day, you're not going to be like, well, this pastor taught this thing, so it's there. No, it was you. You have a responsibility to go and seek out. And the reason I know that this, man, think about in slavery, right? Even with the slave Bible, even with the incredible cruelty of slavery that it was, somehow, through all of that, there were still Christian Black people in America during that time. There were still people who, despite all of the brutality, all of the chaos that Satan stirred up,
Yeah.
still saw through all of that and gave their life to Jesus.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Insane.
That's wild. Like the truth of the gospel, no matter how many times it's been tried to be burned, ripped up, taken out, whatever it is, it still persists. It still remains. And the Black church in America flourished
Mm-hmm.
despite all of these crazy conditions.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to look at, you can't ignore that. And so the lazy man's response is going to be, well, they're all brainwashed.
Right.
I know the truth. I'm the one who's enlightened because I read 2 articles. You know what I mean? Like, no, come on, get a little bit serious with your stuff. Do a little digging here.
Yeah.
Do some apologetic study of the Christian faith and then come to a response. Don't just spout something that you just read online real quick
Yeah.
and come here. That's crazy. That is ignorance. And I don't think that ignorance is bliss in this case. I think
no.
we're going to pay heavily for choosing ignorance, especially in this age when there's so much information available.
Yeah.
And so I need to be consistent among I mean, I know we're not talking about this, but I'm just jumping really quickly. Sorry.
You're
But
good.
like, I think about another religion, another major religion like Hinduism, who they have so many gods, right? And in fact, they entertain even Jesus, right? They have him as part of one of the prophets, I guess, in that space. And with Hinduism particularly, they kind of come in with like, all religions are truth. They're different ways. How can that be?
Mm,
How can all of these religions be true if you have one religion, even if it's just Christianity,
yeah.
claiming there is only one way? So
Mm-hmm.
how can all of
Right.
this be true? They can't.
Yeah.
Something's got to give. And I think that exclusion, or that perceived exclusion, is the thing that offsets people, because we don't want to be told what to do.
Mm,
We don't want to be told that there's only one way, even if it's the right way, even if there's truth, even if there's life. We would rather find out things the hard way,
yeah.
you know? And I think, listen, I think that there's a special place for Judaism and for Islam. I think they're very close
Mm,
to God. I think this is why we see such incredible movements in the Muslim community with Jesus. Like, these are some of my favorite stories to read, where Jesus is encountering Muslims in dreams,
mm,
and they are doing these radical things for Christ in these places that it's not allowed at all. Like, they're literally going to pay with their life for this if someone finds out. And God is like, bet, no Bible? I got you. I'll show up in a dream.
yeah.
And the dream is going to direct you to some person who's in the market, who's an undercover Christian. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is wild. And it's not like a one-time instance. It's like, there's no mistake there.
Yeah.
There's no mistake there. And so I look at these things, and I think that God does have a heart, obviously, for all people, but for these religions that are so close to the truth, I don't think it's I'm going to burn them.
Yeah.
I think it's that long suffering that we get from God, that I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait as long as possible to make sure that they all turn to me.
Mm,
And I think as Christians, we need to become more curious about bridging that gap. We need to be firm in our foundation, in our faith, and then we need to go reach out to people. We need to sit down and break bread with a Muslim neighbor,
yeah.
with a Jewish neighbor, with a Hindu neighbor, and find those connections. Because you mentioned something earlier, pretty much all of the religions, if you come back and you try to like figure out what a through line is to Christianity, you can find it.
Yep.
You can find a way to have a conversation with somebody, starting with something that they agree with,
Yeah.
as opposed to coming in and attacking them, or looking
1000%,
down
yeah.
at them, or offending their God. You're never going to get anywhere by offending someone else's God.
Right.
That's
Right.
not going to happen. So don't start there. Start
Mhm.
with what we have in common. Let's talk about this. Become curious about them, and then help lead them on that journey if they ask,
Mm.
if they're open. Let me share something about what God did for me.
Yeah.
Hey, well, what does your faith say about eternity?
Yeah.
Who does your faith say Jesus is? Does that make sense? Because almost all these faiths say Jesus was a good teacher and a prophet. So what do you make of a good teacher and a prophet who says he was the Son of God?
Mm.
Was he a liar? If he was a liar, how can he be a good teacher?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can he be called a prophet if his prophecies were false?
Right. They didn't happen.
And they're not calling him a false prophet. They're saying he was a prophet.
Yeah.
So your views of Jesus are inconsistent with your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can lead someone there, then they can start questioning.
Yeah.
They can start doing that work.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit will jump all up in that.
I've said it on this podcast before, question everything. I say
Yeah.
that to Christians. I say that to, I don't care what religion you're in, question everything, because exactly what you said to start this podcast off, get to the end of it.
Yeah.
Right. And like once you begin to question things and you begin to unravel what's there and what's not there that should be there, all these things, there's only one religion that's going to stand up to it.
Yeah.
There's only one religion that's going to actually make you go, even if I don't get everything about this, it's enough.
Yeah.
I've seen enough, I've heard enough, and not for lack of asking questions, not for lack of doing the research,
Yeah.
but just only one religion that actually stands up. And then in the moments where you don't get the, like you said, oh, no Bible, like God's speaking to you through a dream. And you know the difference when you hear that voice. You talked about it in your own testimony. It's a difference in hearing the voice of God, feeling the voice of God, feeling the presence of God
Yeah.
versus something else.
Yeah. And I think we have to, I don't know, this is I think one of my last thoughts maybe on this, but I don't know that even within our Christian's faith, do we really understand the gospel?
Mm.
I don't know that we get that whole picture really fully. I think there's a lot of confusion even around the gospel. We think we know what the good news is,
Mm-hmm.
but we still somehow kind of distort it. But if we got really clear about what the good news is and are able to communicate that really clearly, I think that will penetrate. That will penetrate all of these other mess and all of these other religions and all this thing. If I can come in and very clearly have someone understand, listen to the fact that the wages of sin is death. That's it. There's nothing else that's going to make up. There's no amount of good deeds that you can do to make up for the fact the wage of sin is death.
Which, by the way, flies in the face of karma.
Yes.
Karma is, well, you do this and you got to do this to weigh out for it. And then if you do enough good things, when you come back, you'll come back as a,
next level.
Yeah. No, you can't do anything.
And in fact, this coming back to this thing about how everything that is in God's kingdom is also in Satan's kingdom, but distorted. Karma is a distortion of the biblical principle of sowing and reaping.
Sow, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's there. Everything that you're seeing, again, like this, we're taking a biblical principle that is sound and distorting it to make it so that everything relies on us now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not what sowing and reaping is about. And it's not what the gospel is about.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly what you said. When you get to the gospel of, hey, look, you're doomed, but there is someone who loves you enough.
Yep.
That breaks through every other religion.
He paid the price. You have to accept it.
Yeah.
You have to accept that's what you have to do. You have to accept this thing, and then your sins are paid. I don't know that we communicate that as clearly as we would want to communicate it to others.
Yeah.
And I do believe if we get to that point, it's at least enough to cause curiosity in someone.
Yeah.
Who's like, oh, that's what that is?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was all these other things,
So good.
Yeah.
As we close up here, and we could have this conversation for hours.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing, I'll start, but what is one thing that you'd want to tell somebody? One thing to someone in the church who's kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Mm-hmm.
One thing to someone, if you could talk to Max 20 years ago, right? What would you say? So I'll start. I've already said one of them, question everything. Question everything, be willing to do the work. And the verse that comes to mind, I gotta leave you with the verse, is in James chapter 4. It says, draw near to God, he will draw near to you. Resist the devil, he will flee. It's this idea, it's always just fascinated me. That's a promise in the Bible where if I make the decision to draw near to God, to try to seek him, that he's going to meet me there. I take a step, he takes 3 steps. I take a half step, he takes 4 steps. If I'm trying to draw near to him, he's going to try to draw near to me. And then the opposite's true too, that the more I resist the devil, the more I push away the things of Satan, the further he's going to get from me, the further he's going to get away from me. So what is something that you would say to someone who is in the church and kind of 1 foot in, dabbles in this? And
the very clean, clear-cut part of me wants to say, choose today who you will serve.
So good.
It's a choice. It really is a choice. And I know for some it's going to be a heavy choice, but the illusion of freedom is only going to bring you into more bondage. And Christ has so much more for you on the other side of that. There's so much more of an adventure. There's so much more of a provision, of a safety, of a power, depending and becoming humble and submitted to Christ than there ever is with you having 1 foot here just in case. Choose today who you will serve.
What did you say to Max 20 years ago?
20 years ago. It's funny that everything that I went through, I don't know that I change. So I don't know that I would say anything. I think I would need to let myself go through everything because my foundation in Christ right now is so strong because it was so tested very
Let me
early on.
rephrase that. When I say max 20 years ago, I don't mean literally max 20 years ago. I
Okay.
mean, if you saw someone
Of someone else.
right now, someone walks in here today and they're in the exact place you were searching.
What are you seeking really?
Mm.
I mean, I think if someone would have asked me something like that, what are you looking for really? And why do you think this other thing is meeting that need? And can it really meet that need?
Wow.
I think that would have drawn me away from what I was looking for.
Mm.
How can you be safe in the presence of demons?
Wow. Mm.
Yeah.
What a way to end the podcast. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
As always, thank you for the transparency, for the knowledge, all of that. And I want to thank every one of you out there who are sticking with us. Hey, look, if you want to email us, contact us, let us know what this podcast is doing for you and or some things you'd like us to possibly cover in the future. You can do that at Between Sundays at newlife.life. Between Sundays at newlife.life. Shoot us an email. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We're on YouTube. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're anywhere you can find a podcast. So give us a follow. We'll see you on the next episode.
Living